In the last days of winter, when warm weather begins to return, many of us are starting to think about sowing seeds and putting plants in the ground. But our garden might not be ready if we didn't do a lot of prep in the fall. Today, it's pretty good weather. There's snow coming, but I'm going to go ahead and start the process. So join me as I begin my spring garden cleanup. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott. I've chosen a pretty nice day to come out and take my first look at the garden and landscape. We've had a lot of snow this year, and this whole area has been covered until just the last couple days. So this is my first opportunity to get out and take a look at the plants and the garden spaces. It's difficult to do this when it's covered up by snow. There's more snow coming in the next couple days, so I want to get it all done today. And what that means is the inspection first. By inspecting all of the different garden areas, I can get an idea of what needs to be done and then prioritize those projects so that in the days ahead, as we have warm weather and sun again, I know which areas of the garden to focus on first. It's obvious that this area underneath my hoops definitely needs to be cleaned out. This is where I was growing squash and tomatoes and green beans, and all of this needs to come out before I grow this year. But most of the plants that I'm putting in this space this year will be warm season plants, and so they're not going to go in the ground for another 6 weeks at least. So even though this area all needs to be cleaned up, I've got 4 to 6 weeks before I really need to worry about removing all of these dead plants. These are some of my perennial herbs. The oregano, there's some thyme, I've got some chives back there, and these plants will actually begin greening up pretty soon. So I won't remove these plants, but I'll be coming in and I'll want to remove all of the dead branches and leaves. And because they're going to be greening up pretty soon, this project has a relatively high priority. So I'll probably be taking care of this in the next couple weeks. My raspberry bed is just a mass of brambles, and all of these need to be cleaned out. They too begin to green relatively early in the season, but this is a pretty labor-intensive job removing all of these canes. So I want to do this probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but I'll wait until I have the weather cooperating before I tackle this task. The main purpose of this spring cleanup inspection is primarily to look at the plants and the soil to see what I need to do. But I'm also looking at the actual condition of the beds themselves. And I can see at the base of this bed that one of the boards is actually pulling away. So this is a repair job that I'll need to do. Not part of the cleanup, but definitely part of the prep before I do my spring planting. I'll take a look in my beds to see how they've come through. This bed is primarily garlic, and I don't see garlic popping up yet, but it should be happening soon. It looks like almost all the mulch stayed in place, but there are a couple bare spots, like this one back in the corner, and I'll have to add some mulch to this bed moving forward. Right now, that's low priority. Moving to this bed, same type of problems. I'll need to add some mulch. I had kale growing right here, And the kale will often survive the winter, but this didn't. The roots can be quite deep, so I'll actually need to pull out these plants and add some more mulch before I get into the growing season. And then a bed like this and some of the other peripheral beds, there's still snow in place, but I can get an idea of the general condition so that when it comes time to putting seeds and plants in the ground, I'll have an idea of what kind of work is involved. For now, these beds have held together pretty well over the winter, so it doesn't look like I have a lot of work to do. I actually did some cleanup on this bed in the fall, so it doesn't look as bad as it could have. I grew a lot of squash and some pumpkins back in this area, and while I got most of them out, there's still quite a few that remain. This is actually going to be a pretty easy job. I'll take these leftover spaghetti squashes and put them in the compost pile, but I'm actually going to leave a lot of these stems and leaves in place. They're creating a nice natural mulch, and they're not too thick. So anything that I plant in this area should be able to grow right through them with no problem. So I'll do cleanup of these bigger, chunkier pieces, but for the most part, I think I'm going to let a lot of this remain on the soil surface. And that raises an important question when it comes to spring cleanup. How clean do you want it? Do you want to remove everything so that you're starting with pristine garden beds? Or are you okay with some of the branches and leaves remaining on the ground? I like to garden with a method using chop and drop, where much of what I prune and clean up, both spring and fall, I just drop back to the ground. It's organic, and it will decompose, and it will benefit the soil. So when able, and when it works and looks okay, I just leave things where they're at. This is another area that I did some fall cleanup in. These are my rhubarb plants, and I had actually clipped a lot of the leaves and dropped them to act as mulch, and they've mixed with the other leaves that fell in the fall, and the ground is covered pretty well. I'll need to add some more mulch, but as far as cleaning up, I don't need to work on this bed at all. This strawberry bed needs a lot of work. It's quite overgrown. I need to thin out a lot of these plants, and I really need to clean up this area. And as I look closer, I see that there's actually some green leaves starting to come out. So this now becomes a higher priority project because these strawberry plants are already starting to grow, and I need to really clean up this bed to give them some space to grow. The same holds true for this asparagus bed. I keep my fronds growing during the summer and fall to add energy to the roots, and that really does help the plant. But I should have cleaned out this bed in the fall because asparagus is one of the first plants to emerge in the spring. They haven't emerged yet, but they're close, and this bed really needs to be cleaned out. So this may be my highest priority project so far. I'll need to clean up this little bed of horseradish. But one of the other things I look at as I'm looking at all of the beds are weeds that might be developing. This grass that's growing amongst the horseradish, this is a weed. So this is also part of the spring garden cleanup, is pulling out any perennial weeds or any other weeds that are starting to pop up. Best to get it done now before everything starts growing. I want to take a good close look at my young fruit trees as well. I'm looking for any broken branches that the snow might have damaged, or any dead branches that I'll prune off. As well, I'm on the lookout for branches like this one right here that are growing inward to the plant. Not only is it going to rub on other branches, but it's going in the wrong direction. So I'll have to prune this branch out. And any others that might be crossing and could lead to future potential damage need to be pruned out as well. All of the trees, all the fruit trees in my landscape will get this same look. So I have an idea of what pruning needs to take place. This isn't a real high priority, but I do want to get it done while the trees are still dormant. This area of my landscape is made up mostly of annuals. There are some perennials thrown in here, but for the most part, all of these dead plants need to be chopped off at the soil surface. It's not a hard project. It'll take a little bit of time. And so the next phase for me in this whole area is just to go plant by plant, figure out what it is, if it's an annual or a perennial, if I need to pull it up, if I need to chop off the dead stems, or if there's anything else I need to do to clean up this area. For the most part, this is a great chop and drop opportunity. I've left these plants in place because of the seeds. They're a potential food source for the birds during the winter. I like a lot of flowers, but if I still see a lot of seeds remaining, instead of dropping the dead flower heads onto the surface, I may go ahead and cut them off and put them into the compost so that I don't have too many seeds in this area. In these old wine barrels, there are lots of plants growing. Most of these are actually perennial herbs. So I'll treat these just like that earlier space in the garden. And for the most part, I'll just cut the plants back to the ground. I'm not going to pull them, but I'll clean up this area so they've got space to grow. This lamb's ear did very well last year, and now it looks pretty crazy and overgrown. So it definitely needs to be cut back. And it actually needs to be cut back pretty soon, because I see a lot of new green growth at the base. So this too rises in priority. I'll probably want to get this done within the next week. Along with looking for what needs to be cut back or pruned out, I'm also looking throughout the entire garden at areas where volunteer plants may be popping up. And these lamb's ear are a real good example. I do not want this area to be overrun by lamb's ear. So I'm going to have to remove a number of these volunteers. I'll just pot them up, give them away, maybe put them in other areas, but they definitely need to be cleaned out from here, and relatively soon. I want to continue and do the same basic inspection with all the more established shrubs and trees and perennials in my front yard. I do have a lot of deer that come through here, and while I've got some fencing around some of these plants to deter the deer, occasionally I'll still have some deer damage. So I'll be going through a lot of these plants to see if any of the branches, like that one that just fell off, have been gnawed on by deer. This is a dead branch. I can just remove it like that. But this is what I'm looking for. What needs to come off, what needs to be pruned, what needs to be cleaned. If there's deer damage, it doesn't help the plant to leave it in place. So I'll just prune that out. A lot of the perennials, just like in the back, will need to be cleaned out. But some of these, like this salvia, still have a number of weeks before they'll start growing. So I've got some time, at least in this area of my yard. Here's a good example of an area that's completely overgrown. The plants are getting in the way of the sidewalk. These are perennials. All these yarrow flowers sticking up are beautiful when they're in bloom, but right now it doesn't look so good. So this entire section is going to be cut back to the ground. Late winter, early spring is the time of year to prune back ornamental grasses. And so I want to make sure I get that done before the new green growth appears. So I'll take a look inside the plant to see if any of the green is developing yet. It's not time yet. So these will need to be cut back, but I've got some time before I need to worry about it. I don't have any turf grass in my landscape, but if I did, now would be the time that I would inspect it as well. I'd be looking for areas of winter kill, areas that didn't get enough moisture during the winter, areas that might have been dug out by animals, and any other area that looks questionable. And then I'd start to think about whether I need to reseed or resod before the main growth season begins. I don't have those worries right now, but it's definitely something you should think about if you've got a nice big lawn. I focused on this area, my main garden area, and some of the plants out front. The process is the same for the entire landscape in all garden areas. Just walk through it and see what you're left with after the winter. Get an idea on what you need to start doing, prioritize, and then start getting to work. The weather's great today, so I think I'll start with some of those high priority items. The first being the asparagus. I'm gonna go ahead and get that done. I'll start working on the strawberries and the lamb's ear as well today. I've still got enough time, enough sun, and enough warmth. If you have any comments or questions about cleaning up your garden, please let me know below. In the next video, I'll be covering the specifics of how I clean up and how I prune and how I do each of those individual items that I pointed out. If you want more gardening information, now's the time to subscribe to the Gardener Scott channel if you haven't already done so. And if you like this video, you can give me a thumbs up and share it. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.